What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wildcast podcast. I am Justin Spears, Arizona football beat writer, here with my guy, Micah Lev, senior writer and columnist for the Arizona Daily Star. Apologies for the delayed podcast, and a lot of people are itching for those Monday reaction podcasts that we do every single week. But Lev is out on the road doing some fun stuff, and he's actually going to be at the Colorado game this week, getting ready for Arizona's next opponent that's coming to town next week for homecoming, which is a sellout game. It's in the middle of the afternoon. Hey, how about this? Arizona gets 2 afternoon games in a row. Man, Merry Christmas to all of us. That's a gift right there, man. Two
Yeah, no
afternoon
kidding.
games.
This is the Colorado Kansas State game, which is which I think it's the marquee game on the Big 12 slate this week for sure. Pair of 4-1 teams. Colorado, they're on a roll right now. We'll get to all of that a little bit later in the Big 12 Bonanza segment, where the standings are pretty interesting. Justin, for the three of us, Brett Vera is our third picker. He's not with us for the podcast today, but he had a hot week last week.
Yep.
So we're all bunched up. Things are tight. I've been away this week. How would you assess the mood, the vibe over at the Lowell Stevens football facility this week for Arizona?
A little weird, I gotta
Mm.
say. A little strange, but also optimistic too, because of what Arizona was able to do the last time they went on the road and played against the Utah Utes. And that to me is why it's so hard to handicap this game, is because I keep thinking about the team that looked very flat against Texas Tech, the team that just could not put the ball in the end zone against the Red Raiders. And they couldn't put the ball in the end zone in that game against Utah, but they made timely plays and the big plays that allowed them to really pull off a special win in Salt Lake City. And then the game before then, they could not score after the first drive against Kansas State. And so when you look at after their dominant performance against New Mexico, offensively, Arizona really hasn't done much, especially putting the ball in the end zone. They've relied on Tyler Loop a lot, their unsung hero and kind of MVP of this year's team so far. But I keep thinking about that game against Utah and how gritty they played and how tough they played, and they out Utah and really surprised a lot of people. So again, Lev, people are a little worried about this Arizona team, but then again, there's a lot of hope because of what they have shown this year. So it's tough for me. And I'm really curious to see which Arizona team we're going to get Saturday afternoon in Provo.
Yeah, I think you feel pretty good about the defense, right?
They've
Even
been
though they
great.
gave up 28 points against Texas Tech, really held them in check for the most part. That was well under Texas Tech's season average. And they're doing it without two of their best players. Traden Stukes is out for the season, and fellow defensive back Gunnar Maldonado out indefinitely, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Both with leg injuries. Two of the three defensive backs who came back to the team uh, this year. As you noted in your latest piece, like they made the announcement together. Like it was so cool, right? It was all on that same day, the same day that Noah, Fafita, and Tetero and McMillan made their announcement earlier. They put out a brief video. Hey, we're back. They've been kind of this. I call them the three amigos. This trio, and they've barely been on the field together this year. And it just kind of, I don't know. It really bums me out the way that's gone for those guys. Three super likable kids who are very dedicated to this program. To have these injuries occur, it's a real shame. But despite that, I mean, the defense has played well. I mean, they gave up only 10 points against Utah. Very bend but don't break. They took the ball away a couple times against Texas Tech, kept the team in there while the offense struggled. So that's a good thing. As you mentioned, Tyler Loop, he's been amazing. Like he's in contention to win the Luke Rosa Award. One of the best kickers in the country. So feel pretty good about the defense. Feel pretty good about special teams. The offense has been the issue.
Which is a little surprising because going into this year, we're like, hey, they got a good cast of guys on the offensive line with Josh Baker, Jonas Avianaya, They have probably the best quarterback receiver duo in the country in Noah Fafita and Tetaroa McMillan. Their their tight ends are going to get more involved. Like we were feeling good about this Arizona offense going into the season, and I'm trying to figure out like what's going on. Is it too much? Is it too complicated? Brent Brennan alluded to the offense quote carrying too much scheme,
Mm-hmm.
which to me is a little concerning at this point of the season. Like if these are the things that you have to work out in training camp, spring ball, and then on top of that, you have guys running the wrong way, whether it's receivers or running backs or offensive linemen. And Brent Brennan said it was everybody. I asked him earlier in the week, I'm like, you say this guy or these players are running the wrong way. Like, who's running the wrong way? And he said, oh, everybody. Which, I mean, we're approaching the halfway mark of the season, Lev.
That
That cannot happen.
Yeah, that stuff should have been taken care of after the first two games.
Yeah.
That's what the first two games were for. You're playing your Group of Five opponent, New Mexico, and your FCS opponent, Northern Arizona. Those were the games to work out the kinks. And the offense went backward after that. I agree with you. It shouldn't be happening at this point in the season. I do have some numbers, I think, that illustrate what some of the problems are. So if you look at third down efficiency, Arizona is 14th in the conference at 31.8%. If you take out the New Mexico game, in which they were 8 for 12, they are 12 for 51 on third down since that game, 23.5%. 12 third downs is the same number that Vanderbilt had in one game against Alabama this last week. Okay. So, what is the problem? They are in third and long way too often, right? The only game this year in which their average to gain was less than 6 yards was that New Mexico game. It was 5.8 yards. Every other game, 6.4 yards or higher. NAU game and Utah games, 8.6 yards, which means you're averaging 1.5, 1.4 yards on first and second down, right? So we talked about this in our video after the Texas Tech game, right? Need more singles and doubles. Don't have to go for the home run every single time. The way that the offense has played, the inefficiency has really impacted Noah Fafita in a big way. Okay, I pointed this out multiple times on social media, here on the podcast. It didn't matter what down it was last year. He was like the same guy. 75.9% passer on third down last year. 72.1% on first down. 73.6% on second down. You're like, this guy's got ice water in his veins. Nothing bothers him. Doesn't matter what down it is. Doesn't matter the situation. Okay. This year, still good on first down, 73.2%. Then we go to second down, 61.3%. Are you ready for third down?
Oh boy.
46.5%. Okay.
Damn.
Again, why? Why is this happening? Okay. So
Distance, right?
you look at the distance. Here's how I did this. So last year, he had, and this is all in the cat stats feature, by the way, which might be out by the time you read this. I actually explored 5 areas of numbers: Noah Fafita, Tetero McMillan, a couple of defensive guys too. It's not all negative. Some of it is positive. So last year he had 83 pass attempts on third down. Okay, 47 of those they needed 6 yards or more. So that's 56.6% of the third downs they needed 6 yards or more. Okay. This year, it's 81.4% of the time. If you look at just his pass attempts, that they need 6 yards or more. 43 total third down pass attempts, 35 needing 6 or more yards. That is hard for any quarterback of
Yeah.
any offense. This team needs to be more efficient on first and second down. I think, Justin, they should be running the ball more. Why did they have 55 dropbacks in that game against Texas Tech and only 24 carries by running backs in a game when they were never down by more than 2 scores? The biggest margin was 18-3.
Yep.
I mean, that ratio to me is way off. So run the ball, make things easier on your quarterback by getting into more manageable situations. I will now step off of my soapbox.
Well, and also, get other running backs involved too. Kedrick Reesano, I feel like, hasn't been as involved as he could be. And I know that running backs, they've been dealing with some players being out, like Rayshon Speedy Luke has decided to redshirt for personal reasons, which, hey, wants to develop, come back another year stronger. I mean, he should have redshirted his freshman year, his first year at Arizona, but that did not happen. So he decided, okay, I'm going to redshirt this year because I'm only getting the ball a couple times a game. So with Speedy out, and also Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who's dealing with eligibility concerns, and we don't know the status of him moving forward, even though we've tried and we've reached out to the NCAA and we haven't heard anything back regarding that. You don't have as many running backs available, but you have to rely on some of these guys, I feel like, because Quali Conley is a really good running back, but you need some other guys to carry the load. So Quali is a fresh version of himself come fourth quarter, and you're able to lean on him a little bit more.
15 touches apiece.
Yeah.
How does that sound? Does that sound
works.
about right?
That works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gets you up to 30, maybe even more. I think it's also like it's a little too obvious when Kedrick Reesano is in there, like what they're going to do. They never throw him the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Like if he's in there, he's probably going to run. Quali Conley has proven to be more multidimensional. He is a good receiver. He's kind of trying to play that Michael Wiley role. I wish he wasn't always kind of in the same spots when he's, serving as that check down outlet. It's kind of always in the flat or near the sideline. I wouldn't mind seeing that, the check down be over the middle a time or two, where it seems like there's a lot of wide open space in this offense, an area of the field that they're not utilizing. But yeah, I agree with you. Need more diversification of the offense, more balance. It's a theme we've talked about all year. Got to get 3, even if it's 3 yards on the first and second down. You're 3rd and 4, which is a lot better than 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
They're just putting themselves in these situations that are difficult to convert. And that's why they have so few 3rd down conversions. They have so few first downs, and they have so few trips to the red zone, let alone blown opportunities in the red zone. They've barely been in there this year. I think it's 11 or 12, maybe 12 trips to the red zone all season.
Yeah.
In 5 games. That's not a lot.
No. And they're getting close too. Like the trips to the red zone that Brent Brennan was counting were inside the 30 too.
Yeah, red zone
the 30
adjacent.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
By the way, you're getting close.
Tom Brady loves using the term red area.
Does he really?
On his broadcasts, I know, which is one of our favorites, the red area. Every single time. It's
the red area. The red area program.
The kicking game.
The kicking game. But yeah, I'm really excited for this game coming up here on Saturday. We'll break it all down moving forward.
You got big noon kickoff in Provo. The crowd's going to be great. The atmosphere is going to be great. I've never been up there, so that should be fun and interesting scene for you.
Yeah, it's going to be rowdy. And also, another thing that kind of bodes well for Arizona is it's a day game, which you're like, what? How does that factor in? Well, apparently BYU, they're a bunch of vampires up there in Provo because they have a great record at night. Since 2019, I think they have 3 losses at night since 2019. And then their games during the day, they have a sub 500 record. So for some reason,
the hotter the better. Hey man, the hotter the better for Arizona, right?
There's certainly a day and night element to this game that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I'm excited for the game up there in Provo. We'll talk more about BYU and that game coming up later on. Lev, before we get to Big 12 Bonanza, let's answer some Twitter mailbag questions. You had a bunch submitted last week.
Yeah, I have a few leftovers here. This one comes from CJ at CJAZ Wildlife Law. Why does Arizona run a slow developing run pass option without Noah ever keeping it? Seems like the defense knows it will always be a run. We have remarked about and asked about the sort of slow developing run plays that Arizona has. I don't know if they're RPOs. They look more to me like counter runs that require linemen to pull, from one side to the other. What's puzzling to me about them is the previous offense had plays where guys would pull, and the plays weren't so slow to get going. It looked like they kind of altered it a little bit against Texas Tech, where the running back would kind of shift at the last second or motion into a position next to the quarterback in shotgun, and they'd get that play going a little bit faster. But we saw against Utah, there were plays where Quali Conley would be caught from behind
Yep.
because he also had to he had to be really patient, not really hit the accelerator because he's waiting for those linemen in front of him to get in position to block, and that was enabling backside defenders to track the running backs down. So I don't know if those are RPOs. I don't think they are, but they are plays that are frustrating to watch sometimes because if the timing isn't precise, they don't work very well.
Yeah. And it's those plays are designed for, like Lev said, the pullers to get in position. The pulling guards or the pulling tight ends or whoever is pulling, it allows them to get to their spots and seal off the block in time for the running back to make a play. But everything has to go perfect. And if someone misses their assignment or the play gets blown up and it's good defense, then it gets blown up at the line of scrimmage and it does not look like a pretty play. So I understand the frustration with Arizona fans. But some of these plays, like the questions said, Noah Fafita's not keeping the ball. It's like every single time they do it, he's handing off the ball. So adding that element of surprise, I think, is going to be something that is going to be beneficial for Arizona moving forward.
If you
As
do
the
it once
defense
or
nails.
if you do it once or twice a game, that the defense has to account for it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're asking Noah Fafita to become Khalil Tate here.
No.
Right? Once or twice a game, keep the defense honest. Maybe they're a little hesitant on some of those plays on the inside. Maybe they don't crash in. You could loop out, that sort of thing. All right, this one is from DI. This is from at Dougman23, frequent frequent interactor on social media on the X platform. He asks, Speedy Luke redshirting, is this likely a transfer? And what has been the most limiting factor for him? Pass protection, route running, etc. What do you think?
It's a good question. I don't know what his plan is for next year, just because I know he really loves Alonso Carter. And I know he's got a really close relationship with him and loves this staff. When Rayshon Speedy Luke committed to Arizona at the All American Bowl, the San Jose State hat was on that table. So he's got a connection that goes back several years with the staff. So honestly, I don't envision him transferring. I think he will start or come back next year and contend for, that maybe that number 2 spot or number 3 spot. Um, but things change in college athletics. You never know what happens with these guys, and maybe there's a school that comes out and says, "Hey, Speedy, we can give you this and NIL money that you can't get at Arizona." Money talks at the end of the day. So I don't envision Speedy going, but things can certainly change. And I think honestly, the biggest thing that limited him, one, he fumbled the ball a little bit, struggled with holding on to the ball, and would also get taken down very easily. I think you alluded to this either earlier in the year or last year. It's like whenever a defender comes in with a paw and just kind of swipes at Speedy, it almost seems like he's instantly going down. So being able to stay on his feet, that's something that he is working on. And I think after building up his frame, adding like 15 pounds, 16 pounds of muscle, I think that has really helped him. But maybe another year as a scout team running back and going into his 4th year, maybe this will allow Speedy to finally have a breakout role. But the dude's super talented, very fast. He's the fastest player on the team, was a little effective in the passing game this season. I mean, those were really his bright spots. So he's a versatile player. I just think he needs just a little bit more development.
Yeah, he's an undersized running back, right? Probably what, around 5'9", 5'10", maybe a buck 80. somewhere in that range. So he's not really a traditional tailback. He's someone that neither staff has really figured out how best to utilize, right? Like, he should be used on jet sweeps, on screen passes, right? Plays where he's getting to the edge, getting to the perimeter. Does not have great contact balance, but man, he can outrun just about anybody, right? So it's figuring out how to use him. Regarding the possibility of transferring, I agree with you. I would never rule it out for anybody.
Yep.
You know, even someone like Traden Stukes, who looks like he's going to redshirt this year. He will have a sixth year next year. He can come back. He loves this place. Arizona gave him a chance when no one else would. I still would not say with 100% certainty that he won't be playing somewhere else next year,
Yep.
because it's hard to turn down those opportunities when they arise. Okay. Next question. This comes from Gozer. Is not throwing over the middle a legitimate criticism? And if so, where does the fault lie? Play calling or QB decision making? I'm going to say all of the above on that one. And I think it is a legitimate criticism. I don't understand why they haven't utilized the middle of the field more. It seems like a lot of their passes, greater percentage than before, have been to the outside or down the field. One of the other things I talk about in my cat stats this week is how they're utilizing Tetero and McMillan. We thought they were going to use him in the slot more. They've actually used him in the slot less. And his ADOT, his average depth of target, is up like 3.5 yards over last year. And as a result, when you throw to him, it hasn't been as efficient as it was last year. Like, the percentage of completions is lower. So I think it's something that they need to do. Kean Burnett is someone who's the last 2 games has 5 catches each of the last 2 games. He's definitely someone, big body, physical presence. You could throw to over the middle. Montana Lamonius Craig, also big, strong receiver. You could throw to him over the middle. But you gotta draw up those plays, and the quarterback has to commit to doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Noah Fafita's height is a deterrent in that regard. Maybe it is hard for him to see over his linemen, but he's always shown a good ability since he's been here to create those throwing lanes. So I think it's definitely a legitimate criticism and something that they could do more of. I think it would help the offense if they did.
I agree with you that it's all of the above, but also, Noah, you just got to play catch with your guys. That's not T-Mac. And Quali Conley, like that second interception against Texas Tech, I didn't realize it until I watched the replay when I watched the game afterwards. I didn't realize how wide open Quali Conley was.
Was he the one who was just kind of like standing there, like doing jumping jacks, like throwing the ball?
Yeah. Yes. And again, like it goes back to your point about singles and doubles. Is it the home run touchdown to your buddy T-Mac? No. But it's a play that's going to keep the drive alive and is going to get you closer to the end zone. Sam Olsen was also completely wide open in that underneath route too. So I think that Noah Fafita needs to trust his guys more. And, when he came in as the backup last year, it's easy to trust the bona fide starters that are Jacob Cowing, that are Tanner McLaughlin, of course, your longtime buddy in T-Mac. These guys that Noah Fafita has on the field with him, they're completely new. They're all first-year guys with him. And I think they're still developing that trust factor. But you have to just trust your guys in the game. And Quali Conley, I think, has proven that he's a versatile running back and a guy that can make plays. So I think getting the other guys involved, I know we've been talking about it ad nauseum over the last few weeks, but maybe this is where we finally see it at BYU.
Yeah, I have one more question.
All right, let's do it.
Wilson staff Stan, who likes to mix it up quite a bit. Got into some huge arguments with him recently, but I think we've come to some common ground here. Definitely an impassioned fan. What really happened with the Babers-Adkins situation? If Adkins was always the plan, why have Babers call plays? And if Babers was calling amazing plays in spring and fall camp, what changed? What do you think about that one, Justin?
Matt Atkins is still inexperienced. While he is a guy that's been under Brent Brennan for 6-7 years at San Jose State, he doesn't really have play calling experience. And when we spoke to Matt Atkins early in the week, I asked him about the Swedish Football League and how coaching in that league helped him in his play calling. And he said, controlling that offense and getting those guys to buy in and the success that we had, it gave me the confidence. And it kind of was a sign that let me know, hey, I think I could do this. That was the last time Matt Atkins had called plays. That was several years back. And while he is a young, promising, up and coming coach, he still needed some more guidance and a mentor to come in and help him along the way and kind of groom him as a play caller. And Dino Babers is 63 years old. I'm not sure exactly how old Matt Atkins is, but he graduated from college in 2012. So you can kind of do the math there. Like there's decades of coaching experience between these two guys. So even though Matt Atkins was the long-term goal, they brought in Dino Babers as the seasoned veteran to help coach him up and get him ready. And I think after the offensive struggles in the first few weeks of the season, that plan of getting Matt Atkins to play caller was fast tracked, and they did it after going into the bye week, and they felt like that was the right time to do it. And is it the solution? No, because Arizona's offense has still struggled since then, but you could definitely see more tight ends get involved and the offense have a little bit of a different look.
Yeah, regarding like the play calling in camp versus what we've seen in games, I would say there have been some differences, but a lot of times I think what it comes down to, and you talked about that one play against Texas Tech, is the decision that the quarterback ultimately makes. Like, where is he throwing the ball? What is he seeing? He might have been more familiar with the coverages that the Arizona defense was showing him than what he's seeing when it's live against a different opponent. And there's pressure, legitimate pressure. You're not going to get sacked in a practice. Quarterback wears a red shirt. The defender gets near him, they blow the whistle. It's a different ball game when it's the real thing. So I think they hid some elements of their offense. They brought some of those elements out against Kansas State game. It looked like, wow, this is amazing. This first drive, great balance. They're marching down the field. They just haven't clicked since. I would just the word I would use to describe the offense is choppy.
Very choppy.
There hasn't been a good steady rhythm that they've been able to establish at any point. So yeah. Do you have any leftover mailbag questions, Justin? Or are we moving on to the bonanza at this point?
I got one from Greg Thompson. It's a real quick one. Your boy, Greg Thompson. Does the athletic department have any plan to fix the video sound system? Just going to keep that intro video with muffled sound. Cringe.
So we can't hear what it sounds like in the stadium from the press box because the windows are closed. Would love to hear some feedback from some other fans who've attended games to get their thoughts on this. My experience in general, the last few years when it comes to attending games like with an open press box, there's just too much noise. That I like USC, for example, I've just found their games to be obnoxious. Like, why is someone yelling at me over the PA system? Like, why do we have the band? Let's let the band play. This is college football, right? This is not an NBA game. We don't need to be like entertained every single second of downtime.
Stimulated.
Right? Yeah, stimulated. Like, just let the band play. That's fine. That's college football. Then you eliminate the sound, whatever the sound system issues are. Have your introductory video. After that, let the band do its thing. That's my take.
And let's do our thing for Big 12 Bonanza.
Okay. So last week, Brett Farah, he went 5-1 against the spread. We were both 3-3, which is fine. I'm okay if I'm like 500 the rest of the season. Like
couple of Jeff Fishers.
It could be way worse. So we are all three of us now are 24-21 against the spread for the season. Brett and I are 29-16 straight up. Justin is 28-17. So It's all really close, really tight. Each of the last 2 weeks, Justin, you've actually had a better record against the spread than straight up, which is kind of interesting. It means that some underdogs are winning. They're winning these games outright. This week, I think, is really tough. There are only 5 games, Not a single spread greater than 4.5 points since from the time that I put out the picks for you guys to figure out what you're doing. We start with a Friday night game. This game features Utah at Arizona State. The Utes are ranked 16th in the country. They're coming off a bye. Arizona State had a back and forth battle against Kansas last week. They ended up surviving. This game is on ESPN. It is a 7:30 start Arizona time. And Utah is favored on the road by 4 points. So, of course, once again, the biggest story going into this game is Cam Rising going to be available or not? I would say, based on the things that I've read this week, I'd say he probably isn't. It feels more like we're tracking toward an 8th year for Cam Rising than we are him playing in a game this season, which is kind of hilarious. And I don't know, sort of sad for him. So then you got Isaac Wilson playing on the road. That's a little worrisome. It is hard to picture Utah losing 2 games in a row, though it did happen last year. They actually lost 4 of their last 6 last year when Cam Rising was banged up. Throws a lot of things into uncertainty for sure. ASU coming in on a high. Sam Levitt to Jordan Tyson, like I think 15 seconds to go. The winning touchdown pass in that game. They have the number 2 rusher in the Big 12, Cam Scadaboo. Utah usually pretty good against the run. These quarterbacks in this game, they are 12th and 14th in passing efficiency in the Big 12. You know who's 13th, Justin?
Oh, is it not? Is it Noah Fafita?
It's Noah Fafita.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of
Damn.
sad based on how Noah was last year. So anyway, taking all those things into consideration, I think Utah's going to have a tough time in this game. I think it's going to be really hard for them. I know they won previously at Oklahoma State when they didn't have Cam Rising. I think they are going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a field goal game. So I'm going to take Utah to win, and I'm going to take those 4 points. Take ASU to beat the spread.
One of the top rushing defenses in the Big 12. I know Cam Scadaboo, excuse me, is one of the top running backs, not just the Big 12, but in college football. I love the Cam Scadaboo story, but defense travels. I think Utah's rushing attack or rushing defense stops Cam Scadaboo, really puts the pressure on ASU. And if Utah could set the tone early and force ASU to play catch up and start throwing the ball, then I think that's going to play into Utah's hand, and I'm going with the Utes to win and cover.
Brett is also taking the Utes to win and cover. Okay, our next game is scheduled for 12:30 p.m. on Saturday. This is Cincinnati at UCF. Now, bear in mind, when we're recording this, that game is still on. That could change because of Hurricane Milton, which is wreaking havoc on the Central Florida region. So we'll see if that still happens when it's supposed to. They could conceivably move the game to later in the day or maybe to Sunday or another week during the season. That's, like I said, 12:30 Arizona time. That game's on ESPN2. UCF is favored in this game by a field goal. UCF the wheels have kind of come off for the Knights of late. They went from 3-0 to 3-2. I've been outscored 72-34 the last 2 weeks. Justin, here are their rushing totals this season by game. Okay, 454, 384, 289, 177, 108. And you can see the trend there. Their points: 57, 45, 35, 21, 13. They need to make an adjustment to what opponents are doing to them.
Yep.
Cincinnati is coming off a bye. Their last game was a shootout at Texas Tech. Interesting stat here. Cincinnati has Brent Sorsby's thrown only 1 interception this season, and it was a pick six. Kind of maybe the biggest play of the game against Texas Tech. These are the top 2 teams in the league in total offense. Cincinnati, though, is one of 3 that's allowing more than 400 yards a game. This has got to be the bounce back game for the Knights, right?
Yep.
It's hard for me to picture them losing 3 in a row. I don't feel great about it. I feel like it could go either way, but UCF's got the home field. They've got the motivation and desperation. So I'm going to take UCF to win and cover the 3.
I don't know why I'm picking UCF for this reason, but it just seems like that's how it's going to be. I don't know why when I thought of UCF playing a home game and they're being affected by a hurricane, Hurricane Milton, I thought about Mackenzie Milton from back in the day. Remember him, Lev?
Sure.
Mackenzie
Sure.
Milton? Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, Mackenzie Milton, hurricane
So,
wreaking havoc in Florida. Give me the Knights to wreak havoc on Saturday. Give me UCF to win
okay. Brett is also
and
taking
cover.
UCF. UCF to win and cover. So, all right. So the next game on the calendar is BYU and Arizona. We will skip that one for now. We'll save that for last. That brings us to Iowa State at West Virginia. This game is getting Fox coverage, just like Arizona and BYU. Big Fox, 5 p.m. Arizona time, prime time on the East Coast. Iowa State is ranked 11th in the country. They are 5-0. They are favored on the road in this game by a field goal. So Iowa State, great defense, right? Number one in the Big 12 in passing defense, total defense, scoring defense, you name it defense. Iowa State is really good at it. Rocco Becht has also played really well at quarterback. But if you look at yards per play, 6.7 yards per play on offense for Iowa State. West Virginia's right there, 6.4. West Virginia runs the ball really well. They're third in the league in rushing at 223 yards per game. Garrett Green is a dual threat quarterback. The Cyclones' biggest strength on defense is pass defense. I could cite statistics all day long as to why Iowa State should win this game, but I'm going to pick West Virginia to pull the upset. I like Iowa State a lot. I have them ranked just as high as anybody else. I just don't see them as a team that's like going to go 11-1 or
Okay.
even 10-2. I think the
Okay.
Big 12 is hard. You see upsets week in and week out. So I'm going to take the Mountaineers in this one.
So Iowa State, they have a chance to start a season 6-0 for the first time since 1938. It is their best start since I think 1980. So the Cyclones are having an incredible year under their great head coach Matt Campbell. I like their quarterback Rocco Becht. They also have the best defense, arguably in the Big 12. They know how to stop the run, and Garrett Green I think will be one dimensional in this game. So I like Iowa State to continue their hot streak, and give me the Cyclones to win. Oh, you're on mute,
Yeah.
Lev.
Brett is also taking Iowa State in this game. So I'm the lone wolf here taking the Mountaineers. I think it's going to be a scene in Morgantown, as it often is.
Now, I
So
think winner of this game will be tied with Texas Tech for first place in the Big 12, if I'm not mistaken. So,
I think you're correct. I think that's right. Though BYU could also be in that
oh, that's true.
position if they win. Kansas and maybe Colorado too. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of Colorado, Kansas State at Colorado. This is a late game. This is a 7:15 start. Arizona time, 8:15 in Boulder. This game is on ESPN because, hey, Colorado everyone loves watching Colorado. They're kind of like, whether you root for them or against them, I mean, it's always a show. Kansas State, pretty sizable road favorite in this game, despite the fact that both teams have the same record. Despite the fact that the last time Kansas State went on the road to BYU, they got stomped. The Wildcats of Manhattan, Kansas are favored by 4.5 in this game. So, when you look at Kansas State, when you think about Kansas State, you think about rushing, right? They are a dominant rushing team. Number 2 in the Big 12, 252.2 yards per game. 3 guys who can do it. Quarterback Avery Johnson, running back DJ Giddens, and Dylan Edwards, who transferred from Colorado. Colorado's actually run the ball better of late, and they're defensively they're okay against the run. They're 11th. Kansas State, they do not allow a lot of passing touchdowns. Third fewest in the league at 5. You know that Colorado is going to want to throw the ball all over the place. defensively, Colorado kind of sneaky decent lately. If you look at yards per play for both teams and yards per play allowed, Kansas State 5.4 yards per play, Colorado 5.5. That's pretty good. Something that would worry me if I were the Buffaloes, Kansas State is tied for first in the league with 12 sacks. Colorado has allowed the most sacks at 18. We know they've had offensive line problems. We know that Shedeur Sanders likes to hold the ball and make big plays down the field. Colorado and Kansas State, interestingly, this one really surprised me. In time of possession, they're back-to-back 12th and 13th in the league. Like you would think the way that Kansas State plays that they'd be holding the ball, right, for extended periods of time. All right, so all that being said, I'm going to take substance over style here. I think Kansas State is might be the best team in the league. I think they are going to be determined to not repeat the mistakes that happened to them when they went to Provo. So I am going to take Kansas State and lay the 4.5 points at Boulder.
I think this is going to be a close game, but I think Colorado will set the tone. I think what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to get the ball first to start the game and allow Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and those guys to go to work, score points first, and allow Kansas State to play catch up the entire game. And if you're playing catch up and you get down in the second half and you're kind of forced to throw, I think Colorado would much rather have Avery Johnson throw the ball than run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going with Colorado to win at home and pull off the upset over the Wildcats, which should set up a pretty big-time matchup in Tucson, Arizona for homecoming next Saturday afternoon.
I like where you're going with that, Justin. I always appreciate someone who steps out on a limb a little bit because Brett is also taking Kansas State in this one. So you're the only one who's got the Buffs. It should be a really interesting game. Contrast in styles. Pivotal game maybe in the Big 12 race too, which is going to probably go down to the wire. It could come down to tiebreakers. So yeah, I mean you cannot afford any slip ups along the way. Of course, the final game that we are going to discuss on this abbreviated slate here. A lot of teams on bye this week. It's Arizona at BYU. Big Fox treatment for this one. So you got Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt in the booth, which is always very cool to have the A team. I'm very much hoping that they'll have the sky cam for this one, Justin, so we can kind of get a picture of what's going on in the secondary. Like what is Noah Fafita seeing on some of these plays? I think it would be really helpful to get that view. Arizona's getting 4 points in this game. Kind of thought maybe it'd be a little bit more. So why do we think that's the case? Probably because maybe Vegas doesn't think BYU is as good as its record. Maybe they look at Arizona actually having more yards, first downs, and time of possession than Texas Tech last week. So maybe they're a little better than their record. Anyway, what are your kind of top line thoughts on this matchup?
Well, the whole vampire element, which is why I'm actually going with Arizona to win this game. I got the Wildcats pulling off the upset and getting their season back. It's just like Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos when he says, "Just when you count me out, just when I'm out, they pull me back in." And I think the Arizona Wildcats fans right now, they're out on Arizona right now. They're getting ready for basketball season. And then watch Arizona win this game against BYU and create some excitement again. For some reason, this team, this group of guys, they love it when their backs are up against the wall. Like Arizona winning that game against Texas Tech expected to win. And I always felt like Arizona was going to win, especially in the second half when they finally took that 19-18 lead. I thought Arizona was going to win that game. But with their backs up against the wall, with so many people already counting them out, I think this team relishes in that moment. And I think that the Wildcats figure out a way to finally get in the end zone. And they're going to get into the red zone, but getting Quali Conley involved, getting creative with the tight ends, using the corn dog play that you used against Utah with Jeremiah Patterson. I want to see those kind of plays when Arizona gets in the red zone. And I think even though BYU is experienced, these are some grown-ass men. Some of these guys have families. It's going to be a little bit different than any other teams that Arizona's had to face. But I still like the Wildcats in this game. The defense, the way it's been trending, I think Dwayne Aquina has done a great job with this group. And I think Joe Ciamalo in the last couple of games, defensive line has played much, much better. So I think they figured out a way to get to Jake Retzlaff, put pressure on him, and stop the run. That's one thing about BYU is that they don't really run the ball well. They have a bunch of guys. They have more running backs than Arizona has, but Retzlaff is their leading rusher. They don't have really any running backs that have been effective this year. I think some of those guys will have some big games against Arizona, will break off some big runs. But I just look at this game, and if the more you peel back the layers of this, the more I like Arizona's chances. So that's why I'm going with the Wildcats to win and win by a field goal.
So to that end, if you look at average per rush, Arizona is at 5.5 yards per rush, and BYU's at 4.0, which is not very good. Overall yards per play, Arizona 6.7, BYU 5.9. I think that's another reason that Vegas has this number, as close as it is. Now, on the other side of the ball, and BYU's defense has played really well. I mean, they were allowing only 15.8 points per game, 4.4 yards per play. That latter number is tied with Iowa State for the best in the Big 12. And if you're in the conversation with Iowa State in any defensive categories, you're doing pretty well. I think to me the key in this game is forcing Jake Retzlaff into some uncomfortable situations. Getting a couple turnovers would be huge. Short fields, stealing some possessions. We talked plenty earlier in the podcast about what the offense needs to do. But it was really the defense that fueled the win against Utah. Remember, they had 4 fourth down stops in that game. And if you consider those turnovers and combine them with the actual 2 takeaways that they had, that's essentially 6 takeaways in that game. They might need to replicate that performance if the offense doesn't step up. I'm very torn on this game. I really don't have, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the scenario played out like you described it and Arizona ended up winning. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we were all kind of shocked at how the Utah game went, but this team is so up and down, so unpredictable. So I'm going to take have a really wishy-washy prediction here, Justin. I'm going to take BYU to win, but Arizona with the points. Say it's a field goal game, 27-24, something like that. Heartbreaking outcome if that's the case. Wouldn't be at all surprised if it went the other way. Brett, so I think this might be the first time all year we've got 3 different predictions for a game. Brett's taking BYU to win and cover.
Wow.
So we're all doing something a little bit different here, which goes to show that this is a difficult one to figure out.
I'm concerned with the defensive backs with Arizona. I mean, I like Genesis Smith. I think he's a great defensive back, but Traden Stukes and Gunnar Baldonado, those are some big losses.
Don't you think Genesis, I didn't watch it maybe closely enough after the injuries happened, but Genesis is likely to be the free safety with Owen Goss as the star, not the other way around, right?
Yeah, so I think one of 2 situations is going to happen. The starting lineup will be Genesis at free, Owen Goss at nickel, or you could put Genesis at nickel and Jack Luttrell, the transfer from Tennessee, will get his first start. He's been playing special teams. I think he's got 59 snaps on special teams. I think Dwayne Aquina, if I'm reading the tea leaves, he said maybe Jack will get a chance to go out there and play. So I think one of those 2, that will be your defensive secondary, along with the Takario Davises and the Dalton Johnsons of the world.
Yeah, I read Dwayne's comments about Jack Luttrell. Seems like he's a really good athlete.
Yeah.
He's still a little bit raw when it comes to technique, but that's a good place to start, right? You can't really coach the athletic part. You can maybe coach the technique and your keys, what your eyes are reading, etc. I would love to see some funky defenses out there too. Let's get 6 or 7 defensive backs on the field. Sometimes they haven't really shown that very much this year at all. They have not used that dollar package, very much. I think it's maybe partly because Tay Brown's playing well. He's been Jacob Manu's equal, maybe even slightly better in some ways. So I don't know if you necessarily want to take him off the field. They could do like a 3-2-6, which is a version of a dime defense. But anything they can do to me that causes confusion for the quarterback, maybe leads to some mistakes, some interceptions, some ways that they can steal possession, shorten the field, I think would go a long way toward pulling what would be a mild upset in Provo.
Arizona taking on number 14 BYU, 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. Should be a fun one. Arizona versus the Cougars. And I think, Lev, your first regular season game as the beat writer, when you were the beat writer in 2016, wasn't that in Glendale
Yes,
against BYU?
that is correct. Yes, my first game that I covered, period, was the New Mexico Bowl the previous December in Albuquerque. So yes, the first regular season game was against BYU in Glendale, and I think BYU won that game
They did.
like 19-16 or
Yep.
something like that. Yeah. And I always felt like BYU was a tough matchup for Arizona because of what you mentioned earlier. Like a lot of those guys go on missions, and they're just 2 years older than everybody they face. They're like fully developed grown men in the trenches. Doesn't necessarily feel like this BYU team plays that way.
No.
But we'll see. We'll see on Saturday.
Arizona looking to beat BYU for the first time since that 08 Las Vegas Bowl. It had a very interesting matchups. They played in the Kevin Sumlin era, I think kicked off against BYU, Jed Fish era, BYU in Las Vegas. So these two teams got some history with each other, and they'll add to their chapter on Saturday when they first meet as Big 12 opponents. All right, I will have all the coverage in Provo. Lev will have his 5 takeaways after the game on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster mobile app. Check us out there. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast podcast.